Okay, I'm gonna start. American time, not Brazilian time. So my name is Bia Labate, and I am a queer Brazilian anthropologist and recent immigrant to the US, and I'm the executive director of the Chacruna Institute for Psychedelic Plant Medicines. Yeah. So I would like to give you a very warm welcome and tell you how happy I am that you are all here. And I want to say that we welcome people of all genders and all sexual orientations here. Different than what some people in the internet had said about us, this is for everybody. It's not just for gay people. We all are welcome here. Yeah. This conference is not about isolating ourselves. This conference is about creating bridges and not walls. I would like to thank everybody, especially the Brava Theater Center, the Chacruna's Women, Gender Diversity and Sexual Minorities Working Group, all the speakers, all the volunteers, our teams, our allies, and our collaborators, and especially my good conference partner, Alex. A clap of hand for him. Probably he's running around somewhere doing something. I also want to thank our sponsors, MAPS, Comfort and Joy, Dr. Bronner's, Arwen Fund, Double Blind, Psychedelic Society of Minneapolis, Soltara, Temple of the Way of the Light, and Ayahuasca Healing Retreats. So, what is Chakruna? We are a nonprofit organization that provides public education and cultural understanding about psychedelic plant medicines and promote a bridge between the ceremonial use of sacred plants and psychedelic science. So our main focus is culture. I am an anthropologist, and a lot of us are in the social sciences. We aim to foster cultural and political reflections on the field of psychedelic science. And we also want to promote access, inclusion, and diversity by including the voices of women, queer people, indigenous peoples, people of color, and people from the Global South in the field of psychedelic science. And I'm happy. Following our inclusivity policies, I am happy to say that we have given 120 free tickets for this conference, including speakers, scholarships, community partners, volunteers, our team, press, da-da-da. And this does not include the students that have prizes, and also we have prizes, scholarships. So this conference is super in alignment with our mission. What is this conference about? I'm going to try to make a succinct summary of what the hell is Queering Psychedelics. 4 main topics. One topic is to explore the historical relationship between the gay movement and psychedelics, a topic that has not been explored very much, despite being, in a way, so obvious, and despite us being in the seat of the countercultural movement. So I'm going to quote here a dear friend and kind of idol and colleague, Eric, that is going to talk to us afterwards. As Eric Dave puts it, psychedelic experience in the modern era has always been queer, not just in the sense of being enchanted, wayward, and weird, but in some of the more concrete sense that queer folk have fundamentally shaped the substance, style, and spirituality of the psychedelic underground. So we're going to learn more about this in his presentation. We hope that this conference helped give more visibility to queer people's contribution to psychedelic medicine. The second, let's say, main track of this conference has to do to talk about indigenous perspectives on psychedelics, gender roles, and identity. To bring to light the idea of two queer spirit to the field of psychedelics in the US, and to remember the need to reconnect to the people of this land. So I'm also very pleased that Kenyon has accepted our invitation to come, and we're going to hear more about this. It's incredible how you don't have any Native perspectives normally included in the psychedelic science in the US. Sometimes we consume some Native people from South America, but the people from the land are normally not included. We hope to change this. The third line of action of this conference is how modern psychedelic research might address the unique needs and traumas of sexual and gender minorities, populations that can suffer from challenging mental health conditions brought on by social exclusion, societal exclusion. So a lot, high rates of depression, suicide, and anxiety, and so forth. And what are the promises of psychedelics for these groups? Some of the questions that this engenders. How can psychedelics help cope with ongoing racial, sexual orientation, and gender discrimination? Can psychedelic therapy help heal chronic internalized shame? Also, there is a personal element in all of this for me, and my own challenges in coming out and stepping as a person, a queer person, because I'm Brazilian, and this is pretty still very, very stigmatized in brutal ways in Brazil. The fourth element has to it's a kind of more trippy, philosophical part of our conference. It's to explore the relationship between queerness and psychedelics. So queerness and psychedelics have a lot in common. What do they have in common? They are frequently pathologized, marginalized, stigmatized, and criminalized. They are a result of embodied resistance to forms of disciplinary power. They survived based on the ability to create underground communities and have new forms of solidarity. They affirm new ways of being in the world, of not being afraid of creating some kind of trouble, of owning a kind of rebellious feeling, a kind of sense of thrill and independence. They both have to do with pushing the boundaries of the self, exploring, dismantling, or shattering notions not only of the self, but of the body, categories like time, space. Psychedelics and queerness. They're both also about creating new forms of kinship. So either we're talking about alternative families and alternative ways of parenting, so organizing ourselves in different family units. But we're also not talking about just this kind of family. We're also talking about new kinship to other beings, to gods, to spirits, to maybe other species. Here I would like to bring back the topic of ayahuasca, which is my main topic of research. And I have the pleasure that, I have been able to be drinking ayahuasca regularly for the last 22 years, and it has very much helped shape me who I am and give all my visions and my blessings. And part of why I like to do this work is because I believe in it, because I drink ayahuasca and I like it, and I want to help protect this knowledge and this worldview. Drinking ayahuasca has to do with what some researchers talked as interspecies relationships, because the idea is that some of these plants are spirits or teachers or power plants or teacher plants, and that they are alive, they have agency, they have subjectivity, they have intentionality. And we can learn to communicate with them. We can, they can teach us, they can show us, they can punish us, they can comfort us if we are able to connect and communicate with them, if we're humble and follow certain rules. There's a path of knowledge there. And I want to quote here a colleague in a book that I published. Her name is Laura Dev. First, plants are excluded from ontological status as knowing or even animate beings. Second, we limit all that exists to only those things knowable by humans with specific ways of knowing, Lastly, by excluding researchers' personal relationships with plants, we reproduced racialized knowledge hierarchies that continue to place plant spirits in the realm of indigenous beliefs and thereby construct those holding those beliefs as valid knowers. So this is about recognizing plants' agencies and plants in a way as cultural and human as much as we are, and not placing ourselves as superior humans that dominate nature, but learn to communicate with them. And that has a lot to do with our main topic, as I say, is ayahuasca, but also peyote and other plant medicines that are typical to the Americas. Not only, but mainly. And to conclude, and I hope that, this back and forth and my all over the place little intro doesn't make you dizzy, I like to quote Judith Butler, and it's such a pleasure to be near her, and she's also kind of an idol, and I wrote to her an email, and she did answer about this conference. So in 2017, Judith has visited Brazil, and her visit was accompanied by a series of protests, including 300,000 digital signatures against her and her lectures, and a protest that involved burning a doll that looked like a witch and had an image of Judith in the doll, and this was burnt, like a kind of medieval revival of burning witches, because Judith was seen as by these people as the creator of the gender ideology. So embarrassing for me as a Brazilian, but hey, we're all alike. You have Trump here, and so it's okay. We're united. Brazil is one of the countries that is well known to be one of the countries that most murder LGBT populations in the whole world. In Brazil, one woman is murdered every 2 hours. So no wonder, Judith's reflections about queerness and performativity have caused so much threat to religion and society. But although we are, using this idea of queerness, and we have queerness in our title, we also need to problematize a little bit this idea of queerness. And here I want to bring the author herself and bring Judith back and read another quote of her. How does the issue of race divide those queer activists and writers who ally with struggles against racism, nationalism, war, and occupation from those who think that queer thought to become its own identity, its own discipline, and so differentiated from these concerns and struggles? So where does the queer movement stand? Are we in alignment with other forms of resistance, or is this about having an identity? Asks Judith. And then I cut a little bit the quote, so I'm kind of constructing her quote here for my purposes, but I think it's accurate. I hope so. It seems to me that the queer has to be part of the weave of broadening struggle. Can we still own queer or any of these terms without letting them monopolize difference, allowing for a certain movement of thought that is grateful to its critiques, for letting us think something new, that is glad to be in the mix of emerging alliance and not the ultimate sign of its unity? So again, I want to emphasize that our Queer and Psychedelics conference is a conference for everybody, and that all people are welcomed. We are a small organization. We are basically volunteers. It has been a great effort to put this together, a great financial risk and a lot of emotions. A real roller coaster to do things in the US these days. It's hard to please everybody. And I want to really thank all my friends, and I want to especially thank my partner, And, this is also a tribute to her because I kind of have been in the closet for, as you say here in the US, for like several years. And so finally, my partner said enough and okay, so let's make a conference to celebrate. Welcome.